All right. Thanks, Callie, and a belated Happy New Year, Happy New Water Year to everyone. As Callie said, I'm Tony Bergantino, Director of the State Climate Office. We're part of the Department of Atmospheric Science down here in Laramie, and it's cleared off a little bit today. We had a mix of rain and snow earlier this morning, and fortunately, the snow was melting as it hit the ground, and that makes two occurrences for this year so far. Well, the webinar this month is it's going to be a bit abbreviated and a little bit different format since some of our partners are impacted by the shutdown. But in addition to my office, it's going to be brought to you today by University of Wyoming Extension. We have the Missouri River Basin Forecast Center on, Bureau of Reclamation, and then the Wyoming Department of Health will be doing our highlight of the month. So today we'll be looking at the current conditions as usual, then a recap of the water year from the standpoint of surface water. We'll do some forecasts and outlooks. And then that highlight of the month I mentioned is going to be on harmful cyanobacteria blooms. So jumping into the current conditions, here is the current drought map, valid as of Tuesday, whatever that was, the 14th. Quite a large area of improvement in the southeast here, highlighted in green, extending westward into Sweetwater County there. Some thanks to the wet pattern that we've been under here in October recently. Unfortunately, up in the north central parts, northwest, a few red scribbles, and those mark a few areas of degradation. The two largest being the ones here in the Bighorn Basin. Missed out on a little precip and have just been concerning areas in the past. So comparing where we were last year over here on the left, and then with the current map here on the right, you see quite a difference in these depictions. Just looking at last year, we had the entire state in moderate drought or worse. No yellows, no clear, no nothing, just solid drought conditions across the entire state. And now we have quite a bit of the east being completely free of drought. Generally, west of the divide is worse now than it was last year, while this eastern side is doing a lot better than we were back in this time in 2024. So here's our view of drought in Wyoming over the last 25 years. The far right side here, you can see just starting to get a little decline in all the categories. Conditions improving. The amount of the state in those D0 to D4 categories that are abnormally dry through exceptional drought, it's gone from about 79%, I think it was the last time we met, down to just about 64.5% right now. So about a 15% or so drop compared to where we were last time. Counting just the actual drought categories, keeping in mind that D0 is not technically drought, but that's that abnormally dry condition, you're going into or you're coming out of drought conditions. Excluding that, we're at just under 42.5, 42.48 to be exact, percent of the state affected, which is down a little over 9% from last month. So again, improving in that regard as well. So stepping in, look at the last, we're almost 6 years now. The recent decline in the area can be seen a lot better over here. Just over 35.5% of the state has no D category at all, and that's up about 14 or so percent from when we met last month. The decline in D3 can be seen down here in the lower right, where just over 15.8 of the percent of the state is now in extreme drought conditions, and that's down a little over 3.5% from where we were a month ago. So I'd like to see those declines in percentages affected. 14-day total precipitation, almost all of Wyoming is either median or above in terms of precip these last 2 weeks, except for a few little areas over in the far east. Small little area down here in the southwest where we're just slightly on the bad side of median, really. The highest above median has been up here in the northwest, where we're seeing these purple colors up indicating 90 percentile or even greater in some places. And then looking over the last 3 months, story's a little bit different. Bighorns, especially the southwest, being below median, much more substantially so than when you look at the 2-week depiction. Much of the rest of the Wyoming has been, median to a bit above median. The magnitude, though, has been less than when you consider the above median portion of it over the last 2 weeks. So although it's above, it's still not quite as to the extent that we were just looking at the last 2 weeks, which have been fairly nice for most of the state in terms of precip benefited to us. For the standardized precipitation index, or that SPI, decided to stick with the format I tried last month and show the SPIs here as a comparison of the last time we had the webinar and then down here. So across the top, we have the maps. These are the ones that were shown last month. Going from left to right are the 30, 60, and 1-year SPI. And then down here across the bottom left, again, going left to right, we have the 30, 60, and 1-year maps as they are currently. The 30-day compares fairly well, a bit less wet in the northeast now than it was a month ago, but a bit wetter in the Bighorn Basin now. Very few areas showing anything on the dry side when you look at the 30-day period. Moving to the middle pair of maps, again, the northeast is less wet in the current map down here on the bottom, but the northwest and a large chunk of central Wyoming extending eastward are much wetter than what we saw last time. And the dry west and southwest showing up last month have pretty much all but disappeared in the current map. And then finally, looking over here at the 1-year time frame, this last column of maps here on the right, improvements across the board. The west and southern part are much wetter now than what we were seeing last month, though there's still some lingering dry areas in the Tetons, winds, fair portion of the southwest here where we're still getting those yellow colors, but much less intense levels than we saw last month. So it means that the conditions are improving even in the long term and definitely have been in the short term as well. Out in the northeast, Bighorn Basin coming in wetter as well. All good signs. All right. Over the last 2 weeks, minimum temperatures averaged in the low 20s to lower 40s across the state. Much of the west, especially the northern part, has been seeing average lows below freezing now, with the exception of the Bighorns and the Medbows and the Sierra Madres there. Eastern 3/4 of the state has remained above freezing, but starting to get a little touchy there, though. Lower elevations naturally are seeing those warmer lows. In terms of departure from normal, October so far, or the last 2 weeks at least, has been above normal, except for some very few isolated pockets. Largest being down here in the southwest, which was right about normal. Eastern part of the state saw temperatures generally more than 4 degrees above normal, with much of the area being about 7 or more degrees above normal for the last 2 weeks. Large areas of above normal in the central parts as well, though not to the extent as over here in the east. On the flip side of the thermometer, maximums over the last 14 days still above freezing. It's a good sign. I'm not ready for that to change yet. As would be expected, the northwest and the other high elevations around the state were the coolest. Makes sense. Seeing average daytime highs under 60 degrees. State was a lot closer to the median for the maximum temperatures than we saw on the previous slide for minimums. Much of the southwestern half of the state was in the median, that gray area, so basically right around normal temperatures, while the northeastern part slightly to quite a bit above, just depending how far northeast you go, that departure gets stronger the further you get to the northeast. Far northeast corner there was approaching about 10 degrees or more above normal. But then, as I said, that lessens considerably as you went to the southwest, where you hit the line here, and except for a few pockets down here, you were pretty much median. Mixed bag on soil moisture front, although mostly worsening of conditions in the last 2 weeks. There were some improvements in the north central part of the state, as well as in the northeast, but then comparing 2 weeks ago to now, the pretty much deteriorations everywhere else. Still pretty early in the season, but wanted to start showing a snowpack comparison of how we are now, which is over here on the right, compared to where we were on this date last year over here on the left. And except for the Powder River Basin, all the basins in the state are either at or above where they were a year ago. But you'll notice that every basin, the percentage has a little asterisk next to it. And that means numbers, they're mathematically correct, but they don't really give a true nature of the conditions. So don't make any exciting projections based on these, but it just sort of gives us a rough guide of how we're starting out the water year compared to where we were last year. And obviously at this juncture in the season, that can always change on a dime, but continue to check these maps out. They're updated daily and give you a sense of what's going on. Wanted to throw a few slides in here at the very end, just showing the lightning storm we had come through last night, moving from the southwest to the northeast. This photograph was taken from Schaefer Ridge on top of Elk Mountain. We've got a new station set up there with cameras going in 4 directions. And I have been like a kid in a candy store with those cameras going the way they have been. Really, really interesting views that we've gotten up there. And like I said, this is lightning in one of the systems that moved through. And then this morning, here we are just a little bit before sunrise, 7:19 this morning, a nice blanket of snow, some nice colors off there to the east. And winter has hit the high elevations. So now let's go over to Liz Cresto with the Bureau of Reclamation, and she's going to give us a recap of the last water year. Liz.
I'm with the Bureau of Reclamation out of the Wyoming area office, so my focus will be on that Bighorn Basin and the North Platte. Starting off with the water year 2025, going from October through the end of September. Starting off with Seminole inflows were just 54% of average, which is shown in that black line. The blue line is 2024, and the orange dotted line shows the 30-year average. Buffalo Bill was just at 73% of average for inflows, and Boisen's inflows were down at 58% of average last year. So this, of course, has an impact to our carryover going into this next water year. So yeah, go on to the next slide. This graph shows our carryover actual storage in Buffalo Bill and Boisen, while its ownership down on the North Platte. So Buffalo Bill storage is right around 360,000 acre feet, which is just 78% of average. And that's the lowest it's been since around 2002. And Boisen storage is about 515,000 acre feet, and that's as of the end of October. Not October, the end of September 30th value. So that's 89% of average. And then the North Platte I mentioned is those numbers are based on ownership. So in 2025, there was an allocation on the North Platte, which means the water supply was less than 1.1 million acre feet. And then when that happens, the supply is divided among 13 contractors in Wyoming and Nebraska to divide up that water. So the Kendrick ownership is at about 700,000 acre feet or 78% of average. Glendo ownerships, 83% of average, and North Platte ownership is at 39% of average. Next slide, I'll talk about the power generation. So on the Bighorn Basin, our power generation was just 86% of average, and you see that in the 2025 generation is shown in the blue bar graphs, and the orange bar graphs show the 30-year average. So the Bighorn Basin is made up of the 4 power plants that are located below Buffalo Bill Dam and as well as Boise. The North Platte generation was just 91% of average. Overall total value of that generation in 2025 was $24 million, which is about $6 million less than what was generated in 2024. And that decrease in generation is due to those lower inflow conditions into our reservoirs, and thus we made less power with that water. So next, you might recognize these as more USGS slides, but I thought we'd go over our past inflow conditions and what they are currently. So on the left is a map of Wyoming and all the USGS gauges. The dots that are in blue are above normal flows, and green means they're in that normal range, and anything in orange to red are in the below normal range. So starting off with this North Platte above Seminole, the graph on the right shows the inflows from January through now, and the black line shows the current flows, and the shaded area shows how they compare to the period of record, with the blue being above normal and red being below normal. So you see kind of in June, we peaked at that low end of normal, and almost all summer long, we were in that orange to red zone, which is below to much below normal. And you can see more recently, those flows will return into that green zone, and that's largely due to some of those rains we've been receiving. Next slide goes on to the North Fork Shoshone. Kind of same trend. That peak in June happened a little earlier than normal. You can see that whole hydrograph shifted kind of a little towards the left. And then once we got into those summer flows, those were all below normal in terms of inflows. And that would be inflow into, say, Buffalo Bill Reservoir. And then recently with those rains, we've seen a good boost in those inflows and are now in the above normal range for fall inflows. So that's welcome after all those dry months of the summer. So switching over to the Wind River Basin, this is the Wind River above Du Bois. Exact same thing, that hydrograph is kind of shifted earlier than normal. Peak happened early, and after that peak, the inflows declined rapidly, and we're into that much below normal range for the flows on the Wind River. And then, of course, those rains have shifted, and we're now in that green zone. So we're liking those rains. In terms of the current outflows, starting off on the Bighorn side, Buffalo Bill, we are currently in the process of stepping down our outflows to the winter flows, and they will be at 210 CFS starting on Saturday. And those winter flows for Buffalo Bill are established in an agreement between Bureau of Reclamation in the state of Wyoming based on last year's water supply conditions. So we'll be at that 210 CFS at the river gauge. Bull Lake's been at winter flows since September, when they shut off delivering for irrigation demands from Bull Lake, and so they're around 25 CFS. Boise, we began delivering for our winter flow release rate of 600 CFS starting last week. And these flows will continue likely through March or April of next year. So going on to the North Platte, below Seminole and that Miracle Mile stretch is 530 CFS. We have 500 CFS below Gray Reef, 25 CFS below Glendo, and Guernsey's pretty much shut off with just a little bit of leakage left. These are our winter flows for the year. Only thing that's kind of in flux right now is that El Cobra Reservoir will be lowered 10 feet during the month of October to our winter operating levels of 5,488 feet. That's what I have. Thank you, Aries.
All right, thanks, Liz. And now we have Alex Carruthers with the Missouri River Basin Forecast Center to see what we can expect in the coming days and weeks.
Awesome. Thanks, Tony. As I told the panelists earlier, it's really wild to talk about winter snow when it's 80 degrees in Kansas City. But let's get started. So here we are in mid-October. Typical hazard calendar shows winter storms, ice jams, high winds, things that are more geared towards the cooler season. But as I know, at least the Cheyenne weather office was issuing severe thunderstorm warnings yesterday. And Tony mentioned the lightning coming in the picture from Elk Mountain. So can still get some of those warm season hazards right now as well. Next slide, please. So there are a few systems that will come through to give some precipitation to Wyoming, kind of continuing this wet pattern. Today into currently right now, today into tomorrow, seeing some rain and snow in the higher elevations above 7,000 feet. Next system is Friday night into Saturday, which continues more rain and snow, this time along and east of the divide. And then another system Sunday night into Monday, looking to bring some more rain and snow. This time snow could be as low as 6,000 feet. Looking forward, the 8 to 14-day temperature and precipitation outlooks. Remember, these maps are not an actual forecast. This is more just showing a likelihood of either above or below normal temperatures or wetter or drier conditions. So on the left here, we have temperature. The darker shades of red indicate a higher likelihood of above warmer temperatures. So that strongest signal, we're seeing it in the east. But the overall, the whole state, above normal chance of, or a chance for above normal temperatures. I got that. Looking to the right, looking at precipitation, this one kind of splits the state into thirds, with the eastern third seeing leaning towards wetter than normal conditions, with the west, oh, I had that backwards, west wetter, east drier. And center of the state showing equal chances, which just means that using climatology is your best bet as for a first glance at the forecast. So now for the month of November, again, on the left, looking at temperature, and looking like a lean towards above normal temperatures for most of Wyoming, with the exception of the extreme northeast corner, in which case equal chances, so just climatology is best bet. Looking on the right for precipitation, about the northern 2/3 of the state have a slight lean towards above normal chances, so above normal precipitation, with the kind of southwest southern part of the state equal chances. Last slide, please. And then looking for November 3-month outlook, November through January. Similar on the to the previous slide, on the left, we have above normal temperatures for about the southern 2/3 of the state, equal chances for the north. And then for precipitation, this one is split about the northwest half of the state, a slight lean towards above normal precipitation, with the southeastern half of the state, just equal chances. In terms of water supply and mountain snowpack, I do just like to see any bit of green on that map. Back to you, Tony.
All right, thanks, Alex. And our final speaker today is Courtney Tillman. She's with us from the Wyoming Department of Health. She's going to be doing our highlight of the month, which is on harmful cyanobacteria blooms, commonly known as HCBs. So take it away, Courtney.
Thanks. So I'm an epidemiologist with the Wyoming Department of Health, and I work on a few different types of diseases, but one of those categories is waterborne illness. If you want to go 2 slides forward. So what are harmful cyanobacterial blooms? These are dense concentration of cyanobacteria, also known as blue-green algae, that can appear in water bodies. Typically, these happen in the summer months. They like to grow when the water is stagnant, warm, and it's sunny outside, and particularly in water bodies that have an abundance of nutrients. HCBs can appear blue, green, click. There's a good example of a green one. Or they can be brown or tan in color. You want to click 2 more times. They can also look like scum. So here's a really good example of a scummy bloom that we've had. They can also look like mats or spilled paint in the water. If you want to click 2 more times. Here's an example of one that looks like spilled paint. They're called harmful because they can produce toxins, and these toxins can have negative effects on people, animals, and agriculture. Most human illness caused by blooms are mild, and they depend on the specific toxin that someone's exposed to, as well as how they are exposed. For example, if someone who breathes in a toxin experiences nose irritation, coughing, or sore throat, most commonly we see these symptoms along with stomach pain, rash, and headache. Symptoms can range from very mild to severe, though. Some severe symptoms include liver damage or seizures, and the size of the person matters. So the smaller the person, the more likely they are to experience symptoms from contact with a bloom. So this is really important for small children. Animals experience much more severe effects from blooms than humans do. These effects can happen very quickly. With dogs, you can see things like excessive salivation, staggered walking, and that can very quickly progress to death. Livestock can also be affected by blooms. They have similar symptoms to dogs, so it's important to restrict animals from entering any water that has a bloom in it or drinking from a pond that has a bloom in it. The Wyoming Department of Environmental Quality monitors recreational water bodies every year throughout the summer months to proactively detect any blooms. They use a variety of methods to do this, including satellite imagery. They use photos submitted from water body managers or the public, and they also go out every few weeks to test samples from the water bodies. If a bloom's detected, a health advisory is issued. This can be just a bloom advisory if no toxins were detected, or a toxin advisory if they were. Even if there isn't a toxin advisory, these blooms can produce toxins. So with limited resources, obviously DEQ can't go out and test these water bodies every day. So an advisory at the water body is best to just stay out because we don't know if it's producing toxins or not if it doesn't have a toxin advisory. DEQ routinely visits, if you want to go back, all water bodies throughout the summer. However, if animal or human illness is reported, they will prioritize those water bodies. They typically don't test private water bodies, only public water bodies. Next slide. So here's where we're at with blooms so far this season. These blooms start early. I think they started around June this year, and they typically don't die off until the water body starts to freeze. We did unfortunately have a dog death exposure this year. However, we've had no human illness reported. And like I mentioned, toxin advisory means a toxin's been detected. A bloom advisory means we know there's a bloom in the water, but there's no toxins that have been detected yet. Under investigation means a water body manager or a member of the public sent information in and there might be a bloom. Sometimes these pictures are obvious enough that we can go ahead and issue a bloom advisory, but when they're not, we put them under investigation, and typically DEQ will go out to the water body and get some samples collected. Investigation closed means that a potential bloom was reported, but DEQ went, tested the water, and found no evidence of the bloom. Next slide. These are our general recommendations for water bodies that have a bloom in them. 1, don't swim, don't drink the water, don't let pets or livestock enter or drink the water. You can still fish, but rinse the fish with clean water and only eat the fillet portion, don't eat the outside. And also avoid water spray in water that has a bloom. Next slide. For recreational water bodies, always check the advisories and follow them. Neither the Department of Health or the Department of Environmental Quality will close water bodies. If a recreational water body is closed due to a bloom, that's typically at the discretion of the water body manager. So just know, even if you go to a water body and it's open, always be sure to check for advisories. If you have ponds on your land that you use for livestock or other use, be sure to visually inspect the water bodies for signs of a bloom. There are some home tests that are easy and that can be done if you suspect a bloom. The jar and stick test is a good example. There's also some tests you can buy from sites like Amazon, but they're typically not the best because they typically only detect one single type of toxin, and we have multiple toxins that we find in Wyoming. The website on the next page will have instructions for the jar and stick test. If you have a bloom in a water body that's used for livestock or that your pets swim in, just make sure to close off that water body so that animals can't have access until that bloom dies off. And I'm happy to take any questions.
All right, thanks, Courtney.
Yep.
Just some information on an upcoming drought monitor workshop still. You want to provide feedback, see what the process is, how the sausage is made really with the U.S. Drought Monitor. This is a good workshop to attend. Contact Curtis there or sign up for the workshop at the link shown. And with that, I'm going to kick it back to Callie to run us into Q&A.
Thanks, Tony. I'd like to do one last thank you to our speakers this month, and a special thank you to Courtney Tillman for presenting our highlight of the month. And a reminder, if you have any questions, please go ahead and put them in the chat now or the Q&A box. I'll stop the recording, and then it looks like we've got at least one question. So let me stop recording and we will get into the